I'm going live. Hello everyone and welcome along to Watercolour Wednesday. And we thought we'd mix it up a bit today and give you something different. We're going, oh, my stool's very high. Let me just adjust that while I chat to you. My knees will be touching the table. Okay, so we're doing this lovely sunrise. Could be a sunset, but I think it's a sunrise today. This is a lovely photo that I came across a couple of weeks ago and saved it in my folder for the right moment. And today is that moment. So I hope you have all stretched your paper to your board because we will be using a fair amount of water today for this one. I just realised I'm talking to the wrong screen. So let me just switch my view just in case any of you want to chat to me in the chat box. So my paper's stretched, taped to the board with masking tape as well, just to give me nice clean white borders. You know how I love those. And we haven't got much drawing to do today. Very simple. So brush wise, I'm using my number 12 round brush. I'll also use, I may dip in and out if I can find it in my brush pot, a flat brush. So something like this one, which is good to use when you've got bigger areas to cover, or you could even go up to something as monstrous as this one, but this is a bit overkill for today. If you have any sword brushes, you can also use sword brushes to do your sky. Now here's an example of a sword brush. I know another artist believes this brush has been invented by him. But it's a sword brush. It's just a flat brush that's been trimmed to that shape. They are really useful for doing things like skies. I do sell a set of these in 3 different sizes on my website. If you do purchase anything on the website, remember to use your discount code Wednesday10 for your 10% discount as a Watercolour Wednesday member. Okay, let's have a little look at the sketch then. I did start sketching this already. So the first thing we want to do is get our horizon line in place. So I'm just going to make my marks a bit stronger so you can see them. So just a little bit of a bumpy hill. Not sure what it is. Could be a hill. It's a bit out of focus. Could be some distant trees along just about middle, just under halfway down the page. And then we're going to have a look at the lake, the sunset over the lake. So we're going to come down to where the water meets the land and just again sketching across where those trees are sat and the edge of the water. And then coming off of that, just round, coming into view, a bit closer to us. We've just got this bit of land on the left there. And that's all we need to sketch. Other than perhaps the position of the sun, you might want to put in the water the reflection of where the sun is and then go up into the sky. Very, very lightly, and just marking where that sun is coming over the horizon. Just make sure they're directly beneath each other. Okay, colours then. As usual, I'm using my 3 primary colours. So I am using Hansa yellow. You could use lemon yellow or cadmium yellow today if you prefer. Quinacridone magenta and my phthalo blue. When we come to the trees, I will dip into a little bit of Friends Grey as well. You can use Payne's Grey. If you haven't bought my Friends Grey, why not? And or you can mix it with all three primaries, but we want it quite strong for the trees, so it's better to use a grey if you have got a grey, or a black, to use that. Okay, so we're going to start with our sky, but before we do that I want you to get the biggest brush you've got, because it makes things easier. Get some clean water on your brush, and we are going to be working our sky wet into wet. So we're going to pre-wet the paper. I'm going to come under this, over the sun as well, all the way down to that horizon line, to our green area that meets the sky. Just brush that nice and gently backwards and forwards. You can use, if you've only got a small brush, that's fine. I'm going to give that 2 coats of water. It's a very warm day here today in the studio, so when you're adding water for a big area, I want you to concentrate on the edges of your paper, because these will dry before the middle. So put a little bit extra water around the edges. Okay, I'm going to go straight in for that sky colour. Now we need to be careful here, because there's a lot of yellow in the sky and blue, and we could end up with a green sky, and we don't want a green sky. So we are going to leave an area of white halfway between where the yellow is and the blue. So let's get started. I'm going to take my phthalo blue, activate it with a bit of water on my plate. Can you see that? Let me just move it over a little bit so you can see the plate as well. The camera is always a little bit behind real life by about 15 seconds or so, so hopefully this should come into shot. There we go, now you can see it. I'm adding a fair bit of water to my colour. I don't want it too strong. I want a lot of water so the paint will move, and we're going to come across the top. Across that top and come down. Now when you're doing a wash, which this is for the sky, you're going to come across to the end and stop. Actually, I'm just going to put something under my board to raise it slightly. I'm going to use my masking tape. That way, with a slight lift to your board that you're working on, it encourages the paint to flow downwards, and then as you come across, as you stop your brush, you should get a little puddle of colour. Pick that puddle up and come back the other way. Keep working down and your sky will get lighter and lighter as you come down. I've not reloaded the brush, and I'm going to stop there. Remember I said I'm going to leave an area of white. Just cleaning my brush out because my pigments are extremely strong, and I'm going to come into my yellow, pick up a bit of that lovely bright yellow, add some water to it again on your plate, and I'm going to come near the sun either side. I'm just going to clean that brush out a bit more. There's a tinge of green still in my brush. I've still got a bit of blue in there, so I'm going to end up with a green sky at this rate. Here we go. So either side of the sun, and pull out to the sides. That lovely bright coming under the sun. Wet into wet. Your colours will dry lighter than when you put them on. Here we go, all the way across. Don't worry if you go over your green area. The green's strong enough to cover that up later. And then just looking to bring that yellow around the top of the sun and walk it up your page towards the blue, but don't touch the blue. Don't go all the way to the blue. Leave a little gap. A bit more yellow this side. I'm just going to move my reference picture so I can see it better. Fabulous. And I can see more orange in this sky, so I'm going to now mix a bit of an orange into my yellow. I'm going to take a little tiny piece of magenta, pop that in a little tiny bit at a time, guys. Colours change very fast. If you go too heavy, you'll have more of a burnt sienna than an orange. Here we go, a bit more orangey. I'm just going to sweep that in, a bit stronger. A little bit more of that magenta, a little bit more yellow. Taking my paint slightly creamier. Coming in. A couple of sweeps of this orange. Through that sky. And a bit of orange coming up here. Just coming across really gently into the water and sweeping your brush across. Oh, I'm just moving. I'm not very comfortable here. I forgot my stool to rest my feet on. I'm going to take it slightly more orange now and a bit more paint to water ratio, making it slightly creamier. And I'm going to pop in behind those trees with this stronger orange. Right behind the trees, close to the land, with that stronger, warmer orange. And again, wet into wet, I'm just going to pour a couple of streaks across the sky. They're going to melt anyway. If your paper's nice and wet, you're not going to be left with a solid line. That's going to blend out into the water on the paper. Okay, I'm going to go back to the top of my sky now. Clean your brush out, and I want it a bit stronger. That started to dry back and it's a bit lighter than I would like, so I'm going to add a touch more colour to my puddle. I'm going back to the top of the page, all the way across, one big sweep, touch more water on my brush as I come down, walking that down the page. Come so far and then stop. Clean your brush out, just go back with water, and then we're going to join the gap between the yellow and the blue with just water. That way we're sure not to have a green sky. Touch more blue coming in from the side. Pick up a bit more on your brush, sweep it in from the edge. If it goes a little bit green, I'm not too worried when I'm coming lower down. And the same the other side. Pick up a bit more blue, come in right from the edge of your paper and sweep in. There we go. Some nice bands of blue across that sky. Now a lovely trick for you. If you want some fluffy clouds sweeping across this sky, we're going to use just water on our brush. So load your brush with water, get rid of the excess just by scraping it on the side of your pot. Get rid of the excess water. And I'm going to come in, I want a few fluffy clouds sort of going at an angle. So I'm going to take my brush and just drop in some water going across the sky. Wash your brush each time, come back in, and I'm just dabbing a bit of water, but be careful not to put too much. What we're doing is we're letting that water, wash your brush each time, we're letting the water melt, if you like, the colour underneath. The water's going to push that colour away, and I'm coming in at an angle, look, I'm coming in with that water with some clouds that are kind of going up, just water on your brush and let what's going to happen in that sky. I'm going to do the same in the yellow. So clean all that blue out, because your brush is going to pick some up as it travels. I'm going to come from that yellow, and you need to do this while everything's wet, and just bring a couple of streaks of that yellow going up with some water, just water on the brush, from the yellow into the blue. That gives you those wispy morning clouds, nothing too strong. Can you see those lines that the water's pushing the paint apart and giving you that effect of some clouds? I'm just going to take a little bit more yellow. Now this is starting to dry, and I want this sunset area, sunrise area, a bit stronger. So I'm just coming in on the very tip of my brush, just sweeping left to right. Movement should be from your shoulder, remember, not from your wrist. So keep your hand still and swing from the top of your arm, and just bring that sunshine. Now leaving this white area for the sun will give us our real pop of brightness where the sun is so strong you can't look at it. You know that moment when you're driving along in those mornings when you have to put your sunglasses on because you can't see a thing? That's the brightness of the white paper that we're going to leave around the sun. So all I'm doing here is strengthening the yellow around that white spot for our sunburst. I'll just give you a moment to do that. The other thing that's good to do, if you do want those crisp white edges to your finished piece, is just wipe off any excess paint that you've put over your masking tape. Okay, just dry that off. Stops the chance of it seeping through the paper. I'm just going to adjust my screen a second for you. I'm going to make myself disappear with the power of magic. And I'm going to bring the camera down a touch, because when we do the trees, etc., you need to be able to see a bit more on your screen. There we are. Okay. So we're going to leave that sky to dry now, and we're going to focus our attention on the water below, which is actually just a mirror image of what's going on in the sky. So take your bigger brush again, clean water, and we're going to come in along the bank of the lake. You can go across that sun, the reflection of the sun in the water, and then just saturate. Well, when I say saturate, go across once and then go again. Again, concentrating some extra water around the bottom and the edge of your paper. Don't wet the land. We want the land isn't part of the wet and wet. So we're going to work in reverse now. We're going to put the sun in first, because that's the reflection that we see in the water. So take your yellow, and we're going to come around that sun, just creep around the edge of it. Now stay a little bit further back from the sun than if you've penciled it in, because the paint is going to bleed a little because we're working wet into wet. So I'm kind of leaving slightly extra millimetre or so around the reflection of our sun. I'm going to come along the bank off to the left and all the way across the other side, and then start pulling out to the side from the sun, sweep across left and right, and bring that sun down a bit further down the page. Oops, something on my page there. Don't know what that is. A little fly. Okay, so our yellow first, And then remember, we add a little bit of magenta in. Let's turn it orange, touch more magenta, Eunice, in there. There we go, there's my orange. And looking at that reference photo where you see the orange, and it should match what you've done above on the top there. Just touch it in and pull it off to the side. Nice sweeping action from the shoulder. There we go. So what you're seeing in the water is slightly narrower than what's in the sky because that land is in between. So we're seeing slightly less of it. And now I'm going to creep my yellow a little bit closer in, pick up just a bit of yellow, nice and strong, neat, coming in neat now, nice and creamy from my pan or your tube, and just shaping that white, leaving the white showing. If it creeps too much, quickly grab some tissue, touch down and lift out. Dry that area paper off, stopping it creeping in. So we've got that lovely bright reflection in the water too. Now, some people say, oh, you need to go so fast. You do have to go at a certain speed when you are working wet in wet. Otherwise, you'll end up working wet on dry as the paper's drying whilst you're painting. So I'm now going to go into my blue colour for the sky, my phthalo blue, and I'm going to come down the bottom. Actually, let's switch things around, shall we? I'm going to turn my board upside down. Turn it upside down. So we're pretty much doing the same thing again. So imagine this is your sky coming in from the top with your blue. Along that leading edge. And I'm going to walk that down. A little bit of water on my brush. I don't want the water too dark. It's quite light in the reference picture. So down we come, and we need to leave that gap in between the blue and yellow, just like we did for the sky. So I'm coming across from the edge. Clean your brush out, and we're going to use water to join the two together in that area between the yellow and the blue. I'm going to spin that back round and have a look at it up the right way. Okay, I'm going to lay my board flat again now. I don't want it to run down anymore. So I'm removing the wedge and letting that lay flat. And in the reference picture, I can see some more blue creeping in. So I'm just going to pick up a touch more blue, only a little bit on the brush, and sweep in. Direction of the sky. Slight diagonal angle to my brush mark. Coming into the water. And the lake is very still. We haven't got many ripples on the lake. And it's what's going to tell us that it's a lake is when we put the reflection of the trees in place. So we're not going to worry about ripples in this one. As I say, the lake is very still. But I am going to darken this bottom edge of the water. And then just walk my brush up again into the lighter area. Touch more blue coming in from the edge. Sweep it in from the shoulder. Lovely. I'm happy with that. One more touch of blue. I'm going to bring that blue a little bit further up. Too much white space. But I do want this reflection of the clouds in our water space. Is this all making logical sense? It's a very logical approach today. Water on my brush, just water. And remember what I said, wash your brush, scrape it on the side of your pot. And just like I did up here with those angles, I'm going to do that in the reflection. I'm just going to sweep some water into that blue part of the lake. Clean your brush every single time. Fresh water, and just sweep that across. So we're getting the reflection. Look at your sky where you did those angles and mirror them. But this time, instead of going that way, you're coming this way because it's a mirror image. Just a few. I hope you've all brought your hair dryers along today, because now we are going to dry everything off. Ha! That's brilliant. I say that, and who hasn't got their hair dryer? Eunice. I'll just go grab it. That's typical, isn't it? What a wally. Okay. Here we go. Just give that a nice dry off. Hang that up there. So with our sky and our lake complete, we can move on to the land. Just adjust myself there. Have a bit more coffee, keep me going. Cheers. So you need to mix yourself a nice green now from our primaries. I'm not going to be using the blue anymore. So I'm going to use that puddle that I've got there to bring in a little bit of yellow, turn that green. Now, those of you that are relatively new might not have seen this before. Those of you that have been with me a while will know that when I mix that green, it's very bright, especially if you're using the same colours as me, phthalo, lemon yellow or Hansa yellow. So it's a lovely colour, but it's very bright. Very unnatural. So to bring it back to something more that we would see in nature, we need to neutralize it. And the way you do that is add the third primary colour, magenta. Just a little bit. And what that will do is neutralize that green and bring it to something a bit more earthy. So pick up a little bit of magenta or whatever red you're using. Magenta is actually a pink, and in we go. And you'll see that becomes a much more natural looking green. Now I want it all a bit stronger, a bit creamier. So I'm going to go and pick up a bit more yellow, a bit more blue. Making my puddle creamier means I'm making the colour stronger and darker. Touch more yellow in there. That's nice. I like that. I'm happy with that. Okay, wet on to dry now, and we're going to come along that horizon with the tip of our brush. Just create a few little nooks and crannies, some higher areas. Leave a gap between where the sun is, okay? Stop just before the sun and then come in the other side. And stop just, so we're leaving a little gap there because where the sunrise is, it's going to be slightly lighter. So I'm taking that rich green. I think this is distant trees, you know. Down about an inch. So I've still got some land. Maybe an inch and a half. And the other side. And then just block that area in. There's no details to be seen in this mid-ground. We're just going to block that in. middle of your green, I want you to take a little bit of yellow on your brush, creamy, and come in the middle and work into the green both sides so that you're mixing on the paper. So you just got that area lighter in the middle. So put your yellow in, pour some of the green from either side. So it will just blend in nicely, give you that area where the sun's hitting that part of the land. Okay, I'm going to add in an area of my plate a bit more yellow into my green because there's a patch of grass in the mid-ground that's lighter. So I'm going to brighten that up with a bit more yellow, turn it a bit more tennis ball colour. And we're going to paint in just below our tree line some more green. Come right up to the water's edge with your brighter version of the green. So it's the same green, you're just adding a bit of yellow into it to brighten it up. Then back into that darker green, and along the edge there are some bushes or shrubs along the edge of the water. So wet into wet, I'm just going to use the very tip of my brush to come along this left hand edge and just drop in, literally just tap down with your brush, nice strong green along this edge. And let that bleed and diffuse into the lighter colours, over the lighter colours beyond. I'm darkening my green again with more red, taking it really dark now. I think I needed to make that band a bit stronger. Let me just bring that down. I've made a mistake. You just can't get the tutors these days. So hey, I'm going to bring this light area where the sun is a bit lower, down to the water's edge. I left it a bit short. Touch more yellow in there. I don't know. There we go. Now with my very, very dark green. Take it creamy, guys. So if you have to mix some more paint in, bring that extra paint in. Your blue, your yellow, your red, a little bit of red. Make that really rich and dark. You could add some neutral colour in if you want with your Friends Grey or Payne's Grey to darken it even further. And then along this back, along that water's edge, coming on the tip of my brush, just the tip of the brush, coming in with this darker area of the bank near the river. And I'm going to continue along, all the way along the lake, next to the water with this dark, rich green. Once you have that line down, I want you to use the tip of your brush back into it and just push up, literally push your brush up and down to create some shrubs, some trees coming off of this dark area. Some shrubs, some bushes right next to the water. Just random shapes. Just start your brush on that line and work it up. I'm going to bring some quite tall on the right hand side. I'm literally just using that brush in a random manner to create some shapes. That could be bushes, could be trees. Just giving us some shapes there. And the same here. I'm just going to push up smaller as we go across to the left. I'm going to darken this area again, the one right in the foreground. Just tapping in, touch more water on my brush, some darker, shadowy plants and shrubs. sticking with that darker green, I'm going to come along this back plate here that we put in. I'm going to come into the bottom of that with this really dark green, do the same thing. Just create some shapes coming in front of this grass or this hill, whatever it may be. Just doing a line at the bottom and then just tapping my brush randomly, just mark making, that's all we're doing. Creating some different levels of height in our area of land. It's really looking good. Okay, dark green again, just along this edge. I need to come along that edge of the land on the left, just to bring it together. Okay, now for some fun stuff. We're just going to take water. The magic of watercolour is what water can do on its own. If your paint is still wet here, I want you to come under these bushes with just water into the water, into the lake. Okay, just water into the lake area and touch into that green. So bring that water up to touch into the green and let it bleed down. If it's dried on you already, just pop another bit of green in to that wet area, okay? But hopefully it's still wet and you can just bring that water and wiggle your brush against that dark green to activate it. So that's our reflection of those shrubs, trees, bushes that are growing up the edge of the lake. Just by bringing the water into the water. Because let's think about this, the reflection is usually slightly lighter than the actual trees themselves. So by just bringing water along that water's edge, we're diffusing the colour, we're making it a bit lighter. That's just a bit straight for me, so I'm just going to mimic. Make sure you mimic the shapes that are above. So if you've got a tall area of a tree, make sure in your water you bring that height to mirror, obviously, to create that reflection in the water, the same height. So I had some taller shrubs here, so I've added more water in the water. I keep saying that, water in the water. So that's our land done. We've got some shrubs, we've got some interesting shapes going on. So all we need to finish this are our trees. Now the other brush that I'm going to use today, I forgot to mention at the start, sorry. So if you need to grab one, if you have one that is a rigger brush. Now this is a rigger brush. Where's my normal brush? I'll show you the difference. So that's my size 12 normal brush and this is a rigger. I think this is a size, well, it's a size 2. They come in different sizes. I've got a size 1 somewhere, this one. That's a size 3, so I'm going bigger. But basically, a rigger brush is a long, tapered brush, okay? A 0 would be good for this. So I'm just going to have a look in my pot whilst you finish painting your reflections to see if I can find my 0. Or whether it's gone for a walk. Aha. That's a size 1, that will do. I'm going to use my size 1. So what these brushes are perfect for are trees. Really nice, user-friendly way to create your trees. If you don't have one, use the smallest brush you have, okay? Now you need to get that brush nice and wet. And I'm going to use my friend's grey for the trees. Remember, if you don't have a grey, you can mix it yourself, but you need to mix it strong. So I'll do that here so you can see. Lots of thick blue. add your red to make a purple, and then a little bit of yellow. You don't need much of the yellow, so you're using all three colours, but more blue and red than yellow. A bit more red in there, and you can create your own grey. Touch more blue, and we're there. So Friends Grey. Okay, nice wet brush. Stroke it through your colour. Pick up a nice amount of colour. And we're going to bring our trees in. Now some people find it easier to do their trees upside down so that you're pulling the brush towards you. If you're printed off your reference picture, I always find it useful to turn that around as well, so that you're seeing everything the same. And then we're going to pick a tree. We're going to plant a tree along that water's edge. Let me balance more with my little finger and pull it into the sky. And that should create some branches coming off of it. Now you need to hover your hand. You don't want to put too much pressure on your brush. Nice and gentle. Creating your trees. I'm going to turn this back up the other way. There we go. Very fine. And look how one branch comes off of another. You shouldn't need to reload your brush too often. Nice wet brush is the secret, so that the paint can flow. Don't even worry about gaps in your marks. Okay, so I've planted a tree, and then I'm going to come down into the water. And straight away, it's good to do it whilst you do it at the top to mirror it down the bottom. I mean, you've not got to draw every branch exactly the same as you did above. But roughly will do. Into the water. And we're just going to go along. There's some different shaped trees. Some of them are quite green, so I will use my green as well as the grey. Come in and just let that brush, hold it nice and loose in your hand. Don't feel too pressured. These are your trees, doesn't really matter about the shape. Once you've popped that tree in, come into the water and put your reflection in straight away. Okay, that looks like there's a conifer there, something that looks a bit like a conifer tree. So for that one, coming up out of the bushes, still using the same brush, I'm just going to push my brush against the page and kind of stamp in a conifer tree coming out either side of a central point. These are really good brushes because they're very bendy, so as you touch down the bristles bend and give you interesting shapes. Bring our conifer up, and the same in the reflection. Come down from that tree, bring them out to the side, tapering off. As you go. And it's simple as that. So I'm going to use a bit more grey again. This one's really busy, a really busy little tree. Lots of tiny branches. Small branches. Look at the height of the trees, how far up you want them to come in the sky. And don't worry about every line being joined up, because the human brain will fill in the gaps. The viewer of your painting will fill in the gaps. Come down to the water and mimic those marks. Even more so in the water, because if there is some movement in the water, that reflection will be moving. but there isn't today because, as we said, the water's very still. So let's bring some more in here. Fatter trunk on this one. So when you want a bigger, stronger line, just push through on that brush a bit stronger, push down a little bit, and then for the branches, lift off again. And just look how one branch intersects with the other, coming off each other, up and across, up and off. Quite a tall one. I'm going to make this one quite tall over here. Some thicker branches lower down. Coming down with the trunk to the bottom of that dark line. This is where the trees are growing, from the bottom here, and then into the water. Now, think about it. There's some grass here. So there would be, because the light's behind, some shadows of the tree on the grass. I'm going to bring those in too. And then into the water. Look at the height of the tree next to it as you come along. Yes, please. There we go. This is so relaxing. You should be relaxed when you're doing this and just enjoy the process. Now this one over here, I'm just going to wiggle that brush around. I'm not sure if it's a tree or a bush. So I'm just going to bounce that brush. Let it create some shapes. And this one's not going to quite make it to the water. So I'm bringing a shadow of the tree onto the grass. And it's a little tiny bit into the water. Because it's much shorter. Isn't that fun? Now the top of my shrubs, I want a bit more interest as well. So I'm just going to wiggle that brush in circles very, very loosely and create a bit of interest lower down with my grey. Literally just letting that brush have a dance across the page. Some areas of darker interest in front of those bushes. Okay, let's come to the sun now then. Because the trees in the sun have an orange glow to them. So I'm going to mix up, you could use burnt sienna. I'm just going to mix up a burnt sienna. I'm going to take my yellow. And my magenta. Really strong to get this lovely copper tones. Using my rigger brush again, coming across near the sun. I'm going to come up with my tree, plant it in the ground first, come up, because these ones are going to be tinged by the sun, picking up that brightness from the sunrise. And I'm also going to weaken the colour, add in more water as they come right in front of the sun. So strong just out of the sun, but right across the sun. Add more water to your paint so they're a bit fainter, because the sun's kind of bleaching them out. Does that make sense? So we're getting that sun-kissed look to these trees either side of the sunrise. Nice, but just use burnt sienna. If you've already got burnt sienna, just use burnt sienna as it comes. A bit thicker and stronger with your colour to the left and right across the sun, weaker, more water. As you move away from that sun, the branches get stronger again, coming out of the sun at the top of the tree. I'm going back to my grey. Just making those a bit more defined, a bit stronger in colour at the top. And off to the side. And then as we come across the sun again for your branches, nice weak burnt sienna. Do exactly the same thing, but with your watered down burnt sienna. and it's going to give that look that you want of the brightness of the morning sun affecting how you see those trees. I'm just going to darken the bottom parts of my trees and pull them through in the same way as we did before, coming across the grass into the water. Look at the height. I'm not really following this reference picture verbatim, kind of making it up as I go along. Bring those reflections down across the grass and then into the water. Just make sure that they make sense with the height of the other ones that you've done. That's all you need to worry about. Okay, over as we move out to the sun over the other side, we've got a bit of a fir tree again. He's kind of been shaven. He's got a long trunk, and then near the top we've got the kind of conifer look. So again, just using that brush. I'm doing this with burnt sienna because it's still quite close to the heat of the sun. And then a few darker branches in the top of the trees. Back to your grey. And just, as I say, you're not trying to copy every single tree from the photo. You'll drive yourself absolutely crazy if you try to do that. But just mimic the different shapes of the trees. Some of them are really bushy and wide, the branches go wide, others are tall and slender. And near the top of this tree that I've done in burnt sienna, I'm going to bring some of that green in. As it comes out of the sun, I can see some green again. So just using that brush either side of where the trunk would be, mark making, it's like printing. Just push that brush against the surface, make your mark and move up. Make sure that you follow these shadows down onto the grass and then into the water. Same with our fir tree. Just that we're working upside down. Just stamping the shape into the water. Okay. One thing to add, sometimes when you're looking at these sunsets, now looking at this photo, all the reflections are directly under. Sometimes you might see the sun in the middle, and then as you come out to the sides on a wider angle, some of those shadows would go to the left and to the right, depending on how the sun's hitting them. So let's just carry on with our tree making. Plant your tree, bring that trunk up, hold that brush nice and loose. Let it just come across the page. So you'll bring one branch and then one off of it and one off of it, tapering out as you go. We're getting stronger again now as we come away from the sun. I'm just going to make my trees up. Some skinny ones, side by side. These branches seem to be coming out to the side more. Kind of like a cypress tree, that one, I think. Okay, now we're going to I just want to show you one more thing that you can do with your trees. Looking closely at this photo, over the right hand side, I can see some trees in the background. And they're much lighter than the trees in the foreground. So if we look closely at this photo, back here, I can see some distant trees. So for distant trees, we need to weaken the colour. To make this look realistic, things that are further back are not as strong in colour. We can't see that far. We can see the shapes and colours weaker. That's why mountains, when you're looking on a clear day, you're on holiday somewhere beautiful with distant mountains, they can look blue, almost the colour of the sky. They're lighter and get stronger as the hills come forward. The same with trees. So just water your colour down. I'm using that watered down green here, and I'm going to bring some tree shapes into the background first with this watered down green. Just pop some shapes, very random now. They're further back still, so we can't see much detail. I'm just blocking that area in with this weaker green. I'm going to pop through a few, try that again, put my teeth back in, behind these trees as well. Much weaker, so that we're filling in a bit more detail in that background. And then come across with your stronger, and as soon as you put that stronger grey down, or your brown or green, whatever colour you want to do your trees, those ones that we've just put on disappear into the distance. The illusion of space is achieved by the strength of colour that you use. It's a magic trick. Size, think of size as well. So in things that are distant, number one, you can't see the detail. Number two, they look smaller. You've all seen the pictures that people have taken for a joke, holding their hand out, and it looks like someone's standing on their hand because they're further back. So things in the distance appear smaller because they're further away, and the strength of colour, much lighter in the distance. And that's how you'll get that sense of realism, even in like this, which is quite a loose painting of this sunrise, just by making sure you get those value changes right. When your viewer looks at your work, they will see distant trees and they will see close trees. I'm going to add a few more branches to these. They're looking a bit sparse. A few more little twigs, just filling out that area. And take your time. You've got all the time in the world to finish your painting off. Oh, just a reminder, guys, that the competition this month, the picture of the hare. Now, for those of you that have just joined, welcome. And please go back on the Facebook group and check out the competition. You've still got time to enter. And this month, the prize is a 1-to-1 with yours truly. How exciting. And that can be in person, or if you live a distance away, we can have a Zoom meeting just to focus on anything that you would like additional help and support and guidance with. So quite a nice prize to win. And it's a photo. You're looking for a picture of a hare in the grass, and you will notice lots of other students that have entered. So get painting. While your paints are out today, I want you to finish off or enter, if you haven't started, doing your Easter competition. Every month we run a different competition with a different prize. I'm just going back along that water bank with my grey and darkening that further. Adding a bit of dark there. And there we go. So you have the joyous task when you're finished of removing your tape, please make sure you pull away from the painting, and if it feels too sticky, heat it up with the hairdryer. Oops, I've got a bit of bleed in there, never mind. I thought I would because I didn't wipe it off, did I? There we go. I've got 3 edges that are crisp and clean. Our finished sunrise painting. So I hope you've had fun with this. Keep going with your trees. I'm going to carry on after this and just add a few more branches to those trees because they look a bit twig-like. Have fun with it, take your time, and post your finished painting on the Facebook group. I'd love to see them. I'm just going to pop back to camera. 1 second. There we go. So thank you for joining me for Watercolour Wednesday, and I'll see you the same time next week. Take care, keep painting. Bye for now. Bye.